Same thing every year. You're going to buy a place. You're either going to live in it and fix it up, or you're going to rent it. And you're going to keep that going for 10 years. Hello, Women Creating Wealth. Welcome back. This week, we're going to have a quickie episode, just a quickie, because I want to set you up for something that I talk about briefly in next week's episode with Rosanna Queenan. It's the 10-year plan. The 10-year plan is a way that you can purchase one piece of property every year for 10 years, and it will give you money for the rest of your life. It's very simple, and yet it's like you just have to kind of get your head around it and understand it. So I'm going to very quickly explain it. And then if you want, in the future, we can talk a lot more about it, and I'll put up some charts and graphs and show you everything in writing. But for today, I just want to introduce the concept so that when we briefly touch on it next week with Rosanna, you'll understand what we're talking about. And hopefully it will light a little spark in your head that will get you thinking about this as a potential for you to create some wealth that will continue to generate for you throughout the rest of your life. So the first thing you want to do, it's very simple. The first year, so this is a 10-year plan. Year one, you're going to purchase a piece of property. How expensive that piece of property should be is based on two things. One is, how much money do you have for a down payment, right? It's possible that this could have to turn into a longer plan if you can't afford a property that is going to give you enough money for you to be able to live on it every year. So let's say that I know that I need to have at least $10,000 a month in order to live. So $120,000 a year. And then I can be pretty happy. Things can be pretty good. And I'm going to be able to be retired. So if I knew that to be the case, I would start looking for a property that was $200,000 or less. So between $150,000 and $200,000, or $160,000 and $200,000, which means that if you bought this as an investment, you'd have to have between, say, $35,000 to $45,000 as a down payment. So you purchase this first piece of property and you only get a 10-year loan. Now, with that 10-year loan, you might not be making hardly anything for rent. So that's the first thing. You need to buy a property where even with a 10-year loan, you're going to be able to pay the loan and not have to take anything out of your pocket. So you're looking for, let's say, a $200,000 piece of property that you can put $45,000 into between the down payment, the 20% down payment, and the closing costs. When the tenants pay their rent, that it's going to be enough to pay the loan that you're going to have to get on this property. Now, right now, as we're recording this, interest rates are over 7%. They're actually a little lower for a shorter loan. And of course, you could modify this to be the 15-year plan and buy a property with a 15-year note. You just have to buy 15 of them, right? You have to do it every year for 15 years. So year number one, you buy your piece of property. You've got a loan on it. In this case, you'd have a $160,000 loan, and you spend the next 10 years, or actually your tenants spend the next 10 years paying off this piece of property. Year two, you do the exact same thing. I mean, maybe now you can buy a more expensive property. Maybe it's cheaper. It just depends on what the market's doing. And that's part of the joy and beauty of this plan, is because whatever the market's doing, in most areas, a 10-year cycle, possibly, 13, 14, 15 years. 15 is like the longest real estate cycle that I've seen. So you're going to be buying, if you buy low, when you refinance it, it's probably going to be low again. When you buy high, it's probably going to be high again. So, whatever, you're going to have this rolling thing. So year two, you're buying another piece of property. So you have to have saved. That's another thing. You have to now be in a situation where you can save up for your next down payment. You might be able to do this in other ways. You could possibly live in the house for the first year. So you're getting a preferable rate. So let's say you buy your $200,000 property. You're only putting 5% down because you're going to live in the home. You live in it, you fix it up, but then you've got to be able to get your tenants in there, and they have to be able to pay the loan. So you do that every year. Same thing every year. You're going to buy a place. You're either going to live in it and fix it up, or you're going to rent it. and you're going to keep that going for 10 years. Now year 11 comes. Property number 1 is paid off. You don't own anything. You don't owe any money on property number 1. So you go to the bank and you say, hi, property number 1 is now worth X. Maybe it's still only worth 200,000. Maybe now it's worth 350. But no matter what it's worth, you're going to take out a loan for 80% of the value. And that money, whatever it is your money for the year. That's your income. So if you go to the bank, you've got your $200,000 house, you say, or whatever type of property is, you've got your $200,000 property, you say, I want to finance 80%, and they give you a check for $160,000. That's not income. That's a loan. Luckily, you're not the one paying it off. Your tenants are paying it off, but that's a loan that you don't pay any tax on. Okay? As a matter of fact, the interest that you're paying on that loan is tax deductible if you happen to be making a profit from that investment property. Year 2, same thing. And you're just going to continue to do that potentially for the rest of your life. If you don't need, so year 11 comes and you don't need the money because you're still working, and you want to work, whatever, you still got money coming from other places, buy another piece of property. Why not? Then when year 21 comes, you've got 2 properties you can finance. And then you're going to have lots more money. And that's how you can really build wealth. Because if you take that $160,000 in year 11 and you buy a property, and that's your down payment for the next property, that could be your down payment for an $800,000 piece of property that you got from your $200,000 piece of property. So I hope your wheels are turning. I hope this is giving you some thoughts, some ideas. I know I haven't gone into a lot of detail. I'm just talking. I'm not giving you any visuals. But if you're ready to hear this, and this is like sparking an awesome idea in your head, then you want to call me, and we're going to have a conversation, and I'm going to help you to do this thing. I'm going to help you to do it. We're going to do it together. Because why am I doing this podcast, right? You think I get paid to do this podcast? I'm doing this podcast because I want you to be successful. I want you to have a passive income stream that blows your socks off, and I know you can do it. And this is one really great way, is the 10-year plan. So now you've got all the info you need, hopefully, at least to understand when I mention this next week to Rosanna Queenan. Have a fantastic week. And like I said, if this is like made some little bells go off, let me know. Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Women Creating Wealth. For more info, be sure to check out womencreatingwealth.net. If you're enjoying the podcast, please follow us on your favorite podcast platform and consider sharing the wealth with someone else who might enjoy it. See you next week.